So, if I were to ask you why you play Call of Duty Zombies, what would be your answer? Okay, let me rephrase that. Why do you play Call of Duty Zombies? Now, depending on the answer, some people would maybe say going for Easter eggs, or they prefer doing high rounds. Or potentially, if you're a newer Zombies fan, you go for the Mastery camos, but then you kind of stop playing Zombies there. But one thing that I never see anybody actively going out of their way to do or talk about, unless if they're a YouTuber or a die-hard Zombies fan, are the Dark Ops calling card challenges. For those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, Dark Ops calling cards are just calling card challenges that don't tell you the unlock criteria until you either unlock them or you look them up to actually complete them. Calling card challenges as a whole have lost a lot of their punch, especially with the addition of microtransactions like supply drops and bundles. However, I thought of a way to spice up the Dark Ops challenges and make them actually worth completing, aside from just XP and a calling card, because let's be real, if you're doing these, you're mostly doing them for the XP and not really the calling card. That idea that I've had in mind is gameplay modifiers and or toggleable permaperks. Now, I hear some of you saying that they would never add these because it's too much work. However, you would actually be wrong. They have actually implemented these mechanics in past games, even in more recent ones. Permaperks were obviously introduced in Black Ops 2, but there are even more examples that you could technically consider permaperks, such as the Super Easter Egg rewards in Cold War and Infinite Warfare. And as far as gameplay modifiers, not only did they add them in Black Ops 4, but there's even modded maps that have these modifiers. So if modders who do these just for fun and do it for free can put stuff like this into the game, then Treyarch should definitely be able to implement something like this. So today, I want to go through all of the Dark Ops challenges in Black Ops 6 Zombies, and talk about what I think a good modifier or permaperk would be as a reward for each of these challenges. The only rule that I'm going to put on myself here is that the reward has to relate to the challenge in some way. So, post-editing Mob here, apparently they are going to add a feature like this to Black Ops 7 in the form of the Curse mode. However, it seems that it's going to take more inspiration from something like the skulls from Halo. So if I had to guess, instead of you actually needing to complete challenges to unlock these, you're most likely going to have to find them throughout the game or something along those lines. Just wanted to add that here because technically this feature or something very similar is rumored to be coming into Black Ops 7. I take no credit for it. I have thought of this video for months, but I haven't made it until now. But without further ado, let's begin. Really quickly though, before we get into the actual permaperk or gameplay modifier rewards, there are 3 Dark Ops challenges specifically that I couldn't think of one for, so I'm gonna exclude them from this list. And when I explain which ones these are and why I'm excluding them, I think it'll make a lot of sense. So first is Dark Journey, which is for getting Nebula on 33 weapons. And honestly, this shouldn't even be a calling card challenge. They should have made it like how it was in MW3, where Nebula would be unlocked once you got Afterlife on 33 weapons. It didn't need that extra challenge to unlock that final camo. But due to it being for the camo grind, a gameplay modifier, at least for me personally, I don't think it would really make sense here. The second calling card that I'm excluding from this is Grief Goat, which is to win 115 Grief matches. The reason I'm not including this one for a gameplay modifier or a permaperk is because this is tied to Grief mode, which is a PvP mode, so obviously having a reward like that behind this calling card would, I wouldn't necessarily say pay to win, but it would definitely give people an unfair advantage that have this calling card as opposed to the people who don't. So, since I don't want to make these unfair, at least in terms of PvP, I'm not going to include Grief Goat either. And then the final Dark Ops calling card I'm not including in this list is the Dark Ops 100%er calling card, because that's unlocked for completing a set amount of other Dark Ops challenges, so having another reward behind that, I feel like would be kind of weird. So those are the only 3 that I'm not including in this list. With that being said, let's go through each of the other Dark Ops challenges as I try and brainstorm potential ideas for this silly little concept that I thought of. So let's start off with the calling cards that you can get no matter what map you're on, and then after this section we'll go into the map-specific permaperks. So first up is going to be another round, which is for simply reaching round 100. Now this I think would have a gameplay modifier tied to it, and the gameplay modifier is something that you've probably seen in a lot of modded maps before, but it's something pretty simple that I see that they could add. And that's just being able to pick the starting round. Maybe between 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 50, and 100. And then if you manage to get to like round 200, then maybe make that an option as well. But picking a starting round is just a very simple gameplay modifier that I don't think would affect the game too much, especially considering that they've even had this as an Easter egg in Shadows of Evil. So I definitely do think they would be able to add some like this. Next up is Armed to the Teeth, which is for basically having your loadout fully kitted out with 2 legendary full pack weapons, and also having at least 8 perks. For this, I would say that a good reward for this would be a perma perk where you could get discounted perks, discounted pack-a-punch, and discounted rarity upgrades. Next up is Good Enough, which is for reaching round 20 without using any augments, perks, field upgrades, etc. So basically you just have your starting weapon that you're able to upgrade. For this, I think it would be a really good idea to have a classic mode toggle, and also being able to disable features like Pack-a-Punch, Mystery Box, Armor, etc. I feel like that would give people who want classic mode back a fun way to unlock it, and it's actually a pretty easy calling card too. At least it's easier than a lot of the other ones on this list, so I could see this actually being a pretty good reward. Next up we have Invincible, which is very easy. It's just to reach round 30 without going down. For this, I think a fun gameplay modifier would be to adjust the health and or damage of the player or enemies. So make it so that the enemies have like double health and deal double damage, or being able to do that with the player as well. Just, there could be a bunch of different ideas for the Invincible calling card, especially considering that there has been damage adjustments in Black Ops 6 even with things like the like, I want to say it was the Seth Rogen mode, where once you got enough kills without getting hit, it made it so you did like 10 times damage. Maybe that could be a good reward for this as well. Another very simple one, the thing is, I don't know if this would be classified as a gameplay modifier or a perma perk, and that is Harbinger of Doom, which is for just getting 100 kills with a single score streak. So in terms of a perma perk, you can make it so that you could reduce the score streak cost, making it so it requires less salvage to make them, or as a gameplay modifier, you could increase or even disable score streak drops from enemies, or the mystery box as well. So one of the hardest ones that I really struggled to think of a perma perk for was the, well, that was a waste calling card. This calling card is rewarded to you, and I wish I was making this up, for using a Perkaholic Gobblegum and then going down within 10 seconds of using it, which, fucking ouch. But while I was originally thinking of a permanent Perkaholic option, I think that that would be a little too extreme considering this is a pretty easy challenge to do. So as a compromise, I think it would be a cool idea to have a perma perk where you get 1 free random perk at the start of each match. Basically an on the house for free. But obviously you don't get to pick which perk you just get a random one. I think that that would be a nice little compromise to give this one a reward, but also don't make it too strong. Also, I forgot to mention this until now, and I apologize, but for these perma perk ones, this is also basically having the option of being able to turn them on or off. So if you get one of these calling cards but you don't want this perma-perk, you could just disable it in like the options menu or something. Sorry I haven't said that until now, but I just want to make that clear. Next up, let's talk about some calling cards that could actually have gameplay modifiers or technically even game modes put behind them, and I think these would be really interesting to have. Starting off with probably the most interesting one being Light 'em Up, which this one you get for igniting 10 elite zombies with napalm bursts in a single match. I think a good mode to put behind this is what I would call Fire Starter mode, which only allows things like napalm burst, molotovs, the fire sword from Citadel, basically anything that has fire attached to it. I think that that would make a pretty fun mode, being able to see just how high you can get using only fire-related weapons. Next up, let's talk about the calling card that I made a video on and actually inspired this idea for me, being Sticks and Stones, which is to reach round... Is it 20 or 25? I don't remember. Yeah, I'm too lazy to check. But you need to reach that round using only melee macchiato, your melee weapon, and combat axes. This one, I think, is a pretty obvious idea, but it's one that could be potentially really fun, and that's just a melee-only mode. I think that that could be a lot of fun. Next up, and this was actually the one that I had the hardest time thinking of what to do for it, and I'm gonna butcher the name of this calling card. Kunoichi? I think I said that right. This one is the one you get for using the Void Sheath Augment and killing 3 regular zombies, 2 special zombies like Manglers or Doppelgas, and then 1 elite zombie in the same one. So, the idea that I have for this one, since I was struggling to think of one, is you could either bring back Gauntlet mode from Black Ops 4, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically where you have 30 rounds and you have a different objective in each round that you need to do, or basically have an option to toggle random augments, where every single item in the game has different augments that you get to use. I think that that one could be really fun, and it could also help people experiment on what kind of augments they would want to use and what combinations would go well together. Next up is Fatale, which is to kill 2 amalgams with a single shot. This one, I think, a very easy gameplay modifier to implement, and one that I think could be potentially pretty fun, is choosing what elites and special zombies are able to spawn in. So, like, say for example, if you're like me, in Liberty Falls, you really hate the Abomination, you could turn off the Abominations and maybe replace them with something like the Uber Klaus, just as an example. Next up, we have Social Distancing, the hardest calling card, at least what most people would consider to be the hardest calling card in the game. This is for reaching round 20 without taking any damage, which, yeah, that definitely sounds like torture. So, my original idea was being able to change the zombie and player speed, making it so that zombies or the player could be faster, slower, etc. But honestly, I don't know if that would be a good reward for a challenge this hard. But I think it would be a fun gameplay modifier to try out. You know what? Fuck it. Add a permanent perkaholic. I mean, I feel like if any challenge was going to give you a permanent perkaholic, it definitely deserves to be the hardest one in the game, which a lot of people seem to agree is this one. So, I think that would be a fine, like, perma-perk to have as well. I mean, hey, it could work. So, let's talk about the one that I think has the most potential for this kind of concept working. That being Box Addict, which is to get every single weapon out of the mystery box. with an asterisk on that, because you don't actually need to get every single weapon. You only need to get a set amount of them, but they need to be different ones. But anyways, this one has a ton of different gameplay modifiers or perma-perks that you could attach to it. You could adjust the price of the box, what weapons you can get out of it, increase your odds of getting certain weapons like wonder weapons, or maybe even potentially changing the number of spins before the box moves, how many locations it can spawn in at once. There's a ton of potential for different gameplay modifiers or perma-perks relating to the mystery box. And next up we have Reaper of the Undead, which is just for killing 1 million zombies. Now, this one isn't necessarily a hard challenge, but it is a goddamn time commitment. If you want an example of just how much of a time commitment this calling card is, at the time of me recording this video, I have almost 2 entire weeks of Black Ops 6 Zombies played, and I'm not even halfway to this calling card yet, which... oh man, yeah, that one's rough. Anyways, I think a good reward for getting this challenge complete would be to have a boss rush mode. Jesus Christ, that took me like 10 takes to say, so I am finally glad I got that right. But basically having a boss rush mode in the game, kind of like how Infinite Warfare did, where you get to replay the bosses without needing to do the Easter egg. And then finally, for the non-map specific ones, I have Gummed Up, which is to consume 25 Gobblegums in a single match. This one I think could be a really good perma-perk, making it so you get better Gobblegum luck, and that you can earn Gobblegums faster, or in the case of a game mode modifier, you could maybe have a Gum Game, which, in case if you don't know what that is, it is a mod in Black Ops 3 where you can basically make it like Gun Game, which is where the name of it comes from, but instead of swapping guns every round, you actually get a new Gobblegum every round, allowing you to experiment and see different kind of Gobblegums, which I think that would be a cool mode for them to actually bring into the game. So now this next section is going to be the map-specific Dark Ops challenges. I've saved these for their own little sections, since all of them I feel like would need map-specific perma-perks in order for them to work in terms of this idea that I have in mind. So to start off, we have Strike, which is a Liberty Falls calling card where you need to get a score of 300 in the bowling minigame. This one is very simple, just make it so that you get better rewards from the bowling minigame, potentially making it so that you need less points to get better things. And then for the other calling card tied to Liberty Falls being Liberated, which is to complete the main quest in less than 30 minutes, I think that a good reward for this calling card would be to basically get the jet gun right off the bat without needing to build it first, especially because you can access the room to make it within round 1. I think it would be really cool to have a perma-perk where you can just get this weapon without needing it, especially since it makes it so you don't have to do that fucking valve step. God, I hate that step. Next up for the Terminus calling cards, the first one I have is Yo Ho Ho, which is the one where you need to get the Cursed Relic, and you need to get 20k points without taking any damage from zombies. The way that this relic works is that you get double points for every kill you get, but when you get hit, you lose this bonus, and it makes it so I think you actually lose points instead. I've only done this like one time. But I think that a good perma-perk reward for doing this challenge is making it so that the relic doesn't actually have you lose the bonus when you get hit by zombies. Or, alternatively, to make it maybe a little bit more balanced, maybe have it so you only lose the bonus if you get below 50% health. Next up we have Terminal, which is to complete the Easter egg after round 50. Now, I was originally just gonna give it the Liberty Falls treatment where you obtain the Wonder Weapon without needing to actually do the quest for it, but since I didn't want to repeat things and I was trying to think of something else for this map, I actually thought of a pretty good idea. So, something that annoys me with this map is when you're training in the lower section of the map, and then the Pack-a-Punch decides to move up without you, so you're ending up having to change your training strategy, or potentially even getting stuck. So, what I think would be a cool reward for doing this calling card is make it so that the Pack-a-Punch only moves when you want it to. If you want the Pack-a-Punch to move, you gotta trigger it yourself. I think this would be a really nice reward and a pretty good quality of life change behind this calling card. Next up is Of Legend, which is to kill the Citadel boss using only the swords. So I think a good reward for this would be to make it so that the swords can kill more than 2 zombies per swipe, and it also takes less kills to charge the main ability of it. Basically just making the swords better, because as much as I love this map, I will admit that the swords are pretty weak, I'm not gonna lie. Next up is Apex Prey, which is to kill the Z-Rex on the Shattered Veil by basically riding on its back and finishing it off with a melee kill. Now, this challenge does seem pretty hard. I haven't attempted this myself, so I don't know how difficult it is, but I think a really cool reward for doing this would actually be to implement an option to trigger an Easter egg that not many people will know about, without actually needing to do the requirement in order to get it. So, if you didn't know, in Shattered Veil, there's actually a different version of the Z-Rex fight. The reason you probably don't know about this is because the only way to get this is to reach round 100. However, if you did this calling card where you finish off the I almost called this a dragon, I know it's not a dragon, dinosaur. If you finish off the Z-Rex with the melee weapon and get the calling card, you should make it so that the hardcore Z-Rex fight will be available to you without needing to reach round 100. I think that that could be a really cool reward for somebody who wants a much more difficult challenge for the Z-Rex fight, especially considering they finished off the Z-Rex in a very difficult way. I think that this would be a really cool, like, sort of gameplay modifier, or I guess a perma-perk, if you will. And then finally, we have the one that I actually had the most fun thinking of a perma-perk for this video, and that is the Friendship Ended calling card. If you don't know how to get this one, on the map of the tomb, in one of 3 different locations, there's a statue, and if you stare at it for long enough, it turns around, has its eyes glow red at you, and then seemingly completely randomly, it will trigger a jump scare on you. Now, what you need to do for this calling card is trigger the jump scare, but if you melee one of your teammates, if you're playing in a co-op match, while you triggered this jump scare, it will actually pass the jump scare to them, which, that is a really evil calling card. Like, aside from, well, that was a waste, it's probably the most evil calling card in the game, and I kind of love it for that. But I think a good perma-perk reward for this would actually be kind of more messed up, but I think it would also be really funny. Make it so that you are immune to the jump scare, and you activate it for other people when you activate it yourself. So basically, when you activate the statue to do the jump scare, you trigger it for everybody except yourself. I think that this would be a really funny and honestly kind of evil reward for this challenge, but I think that this would be hilarious, and I would love to see something like this implemented. Like, that would be amazing. But there you go, that is all of the Dark Ops calling card challenges, and what I think would be a good perma-perk or gameplay modifier attached to this. Again, I don't expect something like this to be added, but I do think that it would be a really cool idea to add, and I think that it would actually make a lot of people want to go for the Dark Ops challenges, because a lot of people don't really go for these. unless they get them by complete accident. So I think that having these gameplay modifiers and permaperks would actually be a good way to incentivize people into doing these calling cards, instead of just a calling card and XP. But I want to hear what you guys think. Did you like any of these ideas that I had? Is there anything that you would change? Let me know down in the comments below. But with that being said, guys, this was Mob Spider, and I'll talk to y'all next time.